After a short break, I'm really happy to produce content for the channel again. And today our topic is content marketing. Creating content is an area where many of us don't know where to start, and if you produce it on a daily basis, it can get exhausting. That's why it's crucial to have a framework, a calendar, and even a strategy that we follow. Today I'm meeting my friend Stuart Hillhouse and we talk about content marketing. Stuart is the head of content at Mutiny. He writes about growth and content marketing on LinkedIn and on his website. He is the host of Top of Mind podcast, where he speaks with marketers and creatives. Thanks for listening to the show. Welcome, Stuart. It's good to have you at the show.
I know, we finally get to meet. We've been internet friends for so long.
Yeah. I would like to share a small background story about how we met. Is that okay?
Yes, please.
Because I know that you launched the Top of Mind podcast somewhere in February 2020, right?
Yep.
And it was right at the time when the pandemic was starting and I was at home. I had plenty of time to, watch and read things. And I came across your content on LinkedIn. And then I started following your podcast, Top of Mind. And then I became a fan of your newsletters, Top of Mind Weekly. And which is quite interesting about your newsletter is that I was reading it from the beginning till the end every week. And I was even replying back to your questions that you raised on their newsletters. And I was quite amazed on how quality content that you were creating and how the content that you were sharing was quite appealing and quite easy to consume, actually. Because I'm a part of, like many other people, I have lots of newsletters that I subscribed, but some of them I move to trash like in a second, but some of them we stick to them. And I really encourage you to, produce more of those newsletters. I know that you're not as active as you used to be. But just because of that content, because of that great content, here we are talking about content marketing. And I'm really happy to have you as a guest because this is the first time that we are going to talk about content marketing at the channel.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much. Yeah, it was a funny time because luckily I had the plan to do the podcast even before the lockdowns and the pandemic started happening. So I already had the thing set up. I had my mic. I had 2 or 3 episodes and then everyone got sent home. And so I just went crazy messaging every single person who I could see on LinkedIn who seemed cool, asking them for an interview. So I was able to record like 40 episodes in a month, maybe. I think I was doing 2 a days every once in a while. Yeah. So I had a big backlog of interviews and I just would bring them out every week. And then I eventually turned that into the written content you were mentioning on my newsletter. Yeah, I did that for probably a year. I mean, the podcast went for 2 years. I think I did the newsletter for a full year. And then I used that to kind of transition into a content marketing career. And so we can chat about that, how that transition happened. But yeah, I would like to start it up again. I have some podcast interviews in the backlog that I'll start publishing again. But between writing for my full-time job and then doing the newsletter on the side, it becomes a lot of work. And but I appreciate you reading every time and replying. It's always nice to get a reply from your newsletter when you ask a question. That's a big part of being a content marketer.
Maybe this gives you a little bit of motivation to start back again. Can you tell us a bit about your background story about how you ended up in content marketing?
Yeah, well, I actually have no formal training in marketing whatsoever. My undergrad was in forestry, so I'm a bit of a tree nerd. And then I figured I enjoyed writing and was told that it was a part of marketing was content marketing. And so when I transitioned out of kind of forestry into the startup world was my first kind of transition into business. I was drawn to the marketing side of the business, but I didn't know what that was at the time. I kind of remember writing about it and saying, I like promoting the company and I like talking about the problem, but I don't really like solving the problem. That's a lot of work. I like just talking about it. And so then I realized that's what marketing is. And then, yeah, like I moved from kind of like a marketing generalist, like an entry level kind of marketing manager that was doing kind of all sorts of things, to a content marketer. But I did that transition by kind of creating my own content on LinkedIn, and then eventually the podcast, and then a newsletter, and kind of getting my reps in and learning the skills necessary and getting kind of to the quality bar that people would expect. And then from there was able to kind of, without really applying to jobs, people would kind of reach out and say, hey, are you interested in working here? Or, and then a few times I did apply as well. So that was sort of the transition from forestry to marketing manager to now a content head of content at a company called Mutiny. So that was sort of the transition. And if anyone's sort of like getting into marketing, I kind of see that as one of the on-ramps. So there's sort of like organic content is there's no barrier to entry for organic content. Anyone can start creating content on LinkedIn or Twitter or a newsletter. And by building up that body of work, you can then use that as your resume when you apply to a job. So if you have no experience whatsoever, just start writing, start creating, start reading, and then turning those into insights and publishing them, because that's pretty much all an employer is looking for, is like, can you do the job? And in content marketing, that means writing and creating content. The other on-ramp would be like paid marketing. So learning how to run like a Facebook ads account or a Google account or something like that. I see those as kind of the two easiest, lowest barrier of entry ways that someone could get into marketing if they have like zero exposure and zero experience in marketing.
What are the things that we need to have in a content strategy framework? Like basically, what are the things that we need to really cover?
Yeah, I tend to not try to overcomplicate what a content strategy, and we can drop the word strategy if it makes people nervous, but like a content plan for a business is honestly very straightforward. The way I think about it and the way I compare it to is to think about a TV channel. You could also think of like Netflix or any streaming service, but I like that the metaphor works better with a TV channel. Is a TV channel has kind of three ongoing types of content that you don't really notice until you learn about this framework. So they have daily content, which are, because it happens 5, 6, 7 days a week, it needs to be really easy for them to make it. It needs to be cheap. It needs to be consistent. It needs to have a boundary so that it's easy to replicate day in, day out, and the visitors can always know what they're going to get from it. So at a TV channel, that looks like daily news. That looks like sports replays. That looks like talk shows. That looks like kind of recaps of like what else has happened in the world. And so those are like daily shows. What that looks like in a business is like daily content on one of the social media channels. I say that it should be on the social media channels because that is your best way to get that wide distribution of your ideas. And I see social media as kind of the highest level of engagement. Like you can get in front of the most people for virtually free by just posting, if you're just doing organically, and you get people to know about you. So the same way, like a TV channel has news, like news applies to everyone. Everyone's influenced by the news. Sports, people who love sports, that's a huge audience. People who love daily talk shows, huge audience as well. So it's just to get people on your channel to look at that short piece of content. Usually they're only half an hour and social media is short. So that's kind of the first level, is daily content. Then the next level is weekly content. So these are the TV version of this is a well-produced series. So this would be like a weekly recurring show, like Grey's Anatomy or like Game of Thrones or something. Like the budget can, depending on the channel, the budget can be small, where it's just like a sitcom, or it can be a large budget, like an HBO show, where it's like hundreds of millions of dollars, right? But the purpose of those shows is like it's more of a commitment. It's an hour-long episode. You have to sit there and watch the whole thing, and you're really invested in the storyline. You're going to come back next week and watch the next episode. But you sit there for an hour, and what they try and do is they always stack those shows back to back to back, because they know that their power users, people who love watching TV, will watch Grey's Anatomy, and then they'll also watch like a fire rescue show, and then they'll watch like another show, right? So what does that look like for a business? That would be more sort of larger, in-depth pieces of content that are with the focus around a topic that your company is kind of passionate about or is wanting to be known in the market for. So this could be a long blog post, this could be a YouTube video, this could be a podcast. They can be a variation of those three. That's sort of how we're thinking about it at Mutiny, is we've got, you know, what we call conversion secrets that are like interview style, show and tell, where someone's explaining how they did something, a marketing tactic, and how it worked. We also have a kind of blog post where we talk about how Mutiny is doing marketing, kind of a meta content. And then we also have sort of product content where we talk about the problem that we're solving, but not about our product. We're talking about the problem. So we're helping marketers to convert more of their traffic into actual customers. And so we'll talk about how 19 out of every $20 in paid marketing is actually wasted and what you can do about it. So that's sort of the weekly piece. And then the last piece that a TV network will have are kind of tent pole is kind of the industry, the term, because like a tent, a circus tent has that big pole in the center that holds the whole thing together. So you've got like 3 layers of the tent. But you can call it like quarterly, you can call it like lightning strike, which is like another kind of marketing term where everything happens all at once. It's like a lightning strike where you can't stop seeing your company somewhere. And this would be something that you put a lot of effort behind. The TV version of that would be like the Academy Awards. It would be an award ceremony. It would be the Grammys. I don't know what it would be like the European version of all the TV, movie, entertainment award shows. That's what the quarterly one is, because there's so much effort put towards it. It's really big. It's doesn't need to happen all the time because it's just kind of like a yearly award show. Or so the business version of that would be a like research report, or a bundling of all the weekly content into like a book or into a large press release, or something that you need to put a lot of promotion and effort behind. And that is kind of the thing that ties it all together. So if you have refreshing what I just talked about, you've got the daily heartbeat. That's just to kind of like, it should be lightweight. It should be easy to put out. It shouldn't be a struggle to get this out every single day. So design it in a way that makes it easy for you or whoever your team is to just get it out, just do it. Spend 20 minutes and just get it out. So that's like your heartbeat, to like show the world that you still exist and that you're alive and you're doing stuff. Then you have the weekly, we call it the drum beat, because it kind of drives the business forward. Like it's showing the world what you really care about, what you're putting your energy behind. And then from like a business standpoint, it also helps your internal team understand what you're talking about, because your content is so public that if your engineering team might not think about the marketing very much of your company, they're just busy writing code. But when they see every week a new piece of content go out that talks about the problem that they're helping to solve, it really helps them to reframe, okay, why are we doing this? It's not just about features, it's about the problem we're trying to solve. And so it really helps as like an aligning tool. And then you have the lightning strike quarterly big piece of content that everyone pays attention to. So I'll stop there and we can dive into how those play into each other. But that's as simple as my strategy is. Like, I know I explained it in depth there, but it's really just daily, weekly, quarterly. If you can hit that cadence, regardless of how big your company is. So if you're a 1-person marketer and you're in charge of all 3 of those things, that's doable. I've done that. I still do it. I'm writing on LinkedIn. And then in the meantime, I'm also writing a blog post. And then I'm also planning a big quarterly thing. But if your team's bigger, and you would have then a department that was doing social media, you would have the blog team. And then you would also have like your product marketers who are like getting prepared for that quarterly thing, right? So it doesn't matter if you're small or large, that 3 system Cadence is kind of is really the how I see content marketing.
I mean, as I mentioned, I gave a break to my podcast for about a month. And then I realized how hard it is to come back. It's just like doing sports. I was giving to that analogy on LinkedIn this week. But once you give up, it's really hard to come back. And once you gain momentum, it's easier to, sustain and, produce more content. I think starting and sustaining are the very key elements of content marketing, right? So my next question would be, once we know that we have, I mean, it's perfect that you give an example of daily, weekly, and quarterly or a yearly content, like, putting it in 3 pillars. Once we know that, okay, these are the timelines that we're going to start, how do we pick a topic, or how do we start?
Yeah. There's no right answer to this one, because different business models would require different sort of education. Typically, the more expensive your product, the more education you're going to require to do. And so that's whereas if you have a cheap product, you have a shorter sales cycle, that is more kind of direct response marketing, where you're trying to just explain to them why you're better than the existing solution. Whereas the more expensive stuff, you have to explain why you should even consider this and what the problem is and things like that. And so the kind of high level, the first thing we need to think about is kind of the awareness level of our customers. And so you've got the least aware, which are the people who don't even know they have a problem. They might feel uncomfortable. They might have like a little itch that they experience when doing the thing that you're trying to solve. But like, these people don't even know that they have a problem. Therefore, they don't know that there's a solution in the market. Therefore, they haven't heard about you, and therefore they're not considering buying you. So that's a long knowledge gap away from actually buying from you, because they don't even know they have a problem yet. So you can create content for those people, but you can also create content for the people who are further along, who have understood, like they found they have a problem. They learned that there is a solution category that solves this. They found your company name in the list of solution providers, and now they're considering buying you. So if you have a small amount of resources and you're creating content and you need to kind of get results, I would recommend starting with those people who are solution aware. So that's sort of like the last few steps, where the person knows about the solutions that exist in the marketplace and are actively considering which ones they want to buy. So for that style of content, you would want to then be talking about how they should solve it and what the pain points are that they're looking to solve, and kind of help them piece together, oh yeah, that problem sounds familiar. Oh, I've tried that solution, didn't work. Oh, I've tried that solution, didn't work. Introduce a new solution that is yours and say, but have you tried, well, this one should work. That's kind of like there's about a couple frameworks out there for how to do this. But and I'm kind of stealing this idea from the 5 levels of awareness, which is a pretty common sort of like marketing. It was originally used for direct response marketing, which would be like advertising to get people to actually buy. And so those people who are at the end, who are absolutely aware of the problem and are just considering your product, that's where an ad would typically say 20% off, buy it right now. Like those very hard hitting kind of offers, because they know what you sell. They know why you sell it. They know how it would work for them. They just need to be pushed over the edge. Versus the other side of the spectrum I was talking about, where they have no idea that they even have a problem. That's where educational content would come in, whether it's an ad or a piece of content like we talked about. So yeah, that's sort of how I think about the topics. So you can still talk about your like category. If I were to break it down even further, I'd say stick to 3 topics that you want to be known for? That's sort of another thing that startups need to figure out, is like, what do you want to be known for? Everyone talks about like startups needing to create their own category, but that's just not realistic if you don't even have any momentum and no one knows who you are yet, right? So it starts off by being known for something. And so for Mutiny, I mean, we're a little further ahead, but the way they started is they're going to be known for website personalization, which is still pretty niche, even though that's a massive market. Known for website personalization, sort of direct response, so personalized ads as well. And that was kind of it. That's where they started, and that we've since been able to move out and start talking a little bit more about kind of like how to help your marketing team, and a few other topics around more like helping marketers be good marketers instead of the tactics of marketing. But that's sort of how you have to start. You have to just start with a couple topics, and then hit that daily, weekly, quarterly, and then just kind of assess, okay, are we over producing on solution aware content that people are really at low in the funnel, like they're ready to buy? Are we creating too much of that content? Should we move up the funnel and start creating more stuff that just gets people interested in what we're even doing? That's sort of how I think about the topic selection. I didn't really even include anything to do with like search engine results. I know that some people live or die by like how popular a keyword is on Google. Honestly, I think if you're creating the right stuff for the right audience and presenting it in the right way, you can generate a significant amount of traffic organically, without having to just focus on Google SEO. And I know that Google SEO takes a while, and so you want to get started as soon as possible. But that's sort of how I think about it, is like, start with this stuff, and then once you get that momentum, you can then have the resources to either hire someone to do your SEO or outsource it to an agency, because you have such a good handle on the quality of your content that regardless of who's creating it for you, you can then be shown it and then edit it so that, yes, it still has SEO ratings, but you know it still hits your quality bar.
This is amazing, because you mentioned that when you are creating your content for Mutiny, for example, if it's just like a blog post, for example, you don't worry too much about keywords, right? That's what I'm hearing from you. I mean, you don't worry about SEO or the keywords or the backlinks, let's say, that you're gonna, get from that. But other than that, you focus on topics and the customer and the problem that you are solving. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I mean, my current situation, we're not focusing on SEO. So my situation might be different from other people, because our product is an expensive product, and we're not currently like self-serve, which a lot of SaaS products can do. So like a self-serve SaaS product is one where you go on the website and you don't ever speak to a salesperson. You just sign up for the free demo. And then once you do the demo, then you put your credit card in and then you're a customer. That's a self-serve product. Those require, because typically those are lower price point, because it's an individual putting their credit card information in. Therefore, because it's a lower price point, they need a lot more people. They need a lot more customers. And so that's why SEO makes sense as a acquisition channel for those types of businesses, because they need a lot of people, and a lot of people are Googling. So they capture those people through SEO terms. If my business model was that, if we had a cheaper product, I probably would be focusing on SEO. But because our product is expensive and they need to talk to a salesperson, I'm not going to worry about SEO, because I'm trying to find quality leads that my sales team can talk to. And how do I get quality leads? I focus really intently on serving my audience like the best quality content possible on the topics they care about, and delivered in a way that they actually enjoy, so that when it comes time to buy, they'll know Mutiny is the one to go with, and they'll talk to my sales team, and it'll close that way.
So perfect. Then actually we are already building the content strategy, because it all starts with what type of a company you are and what are the people that you are trying to reach, right? So I'm hearing that we are gonna, decide on the people that we want to reach. and then decide on the topics that we want to be known as. You gave some really nice examples from Mutiny. And then once we know that, then we start producing content for the customers based on their awareness levels. And then, and we, segment those information to 3, like daily content, weekly content, and quarterly or bigger content that you release on a yearly basis, maybe.
Wow, your summary is so much better than mine. I just spent half an hour explaining that, and you did it in 2 sentences.
I was trying to, understand if I understood it perfectly.
Absolutely, that was great.
Perfect. What do you see as the role of the content marketer? I know that it changed, as you mentioned, it changed from company to company. If you are like a smaller company trying to reach mass audiences, then it's more of like a SEO and traffic comes into play. But in general, what do you see as the role of a content marketer in a company?
I think it's evolving, because it's really turning into the kind of everything that's public facing. I think sort of falls under content marketing in a way. Some people might put that as a responsibility of just the head of marketing, but the head of content and the head of marketing, if they're 2 different people, need to really be on the same pace about, okay, what are we trying to accomplish? How is this actually driving business results? And then the head of marketing will kind of focus more on the tactics of like, okay, what are we going to do? How are we going to do it? Whereas I see the content marketer really acting sort of as the tastemaker, more of like the editor in chief, of choosing what our stuff looks like. So they should be focusing a lot more on the taste and the aesthetic and like how we're being perceived. So almost a little like overlapping with branding a little bit. But it's like, I think it's like the most public focused role in the company, other than maybe the CEO, who's, if they're taking a lot of interviews, because like everything I create is seen by thousands of people. And that's sometimes the only impression that people have of my company. And so you need to think about yourself almost as a role of like an editor in chief at a magazine, where you have to choose, okay, are we going to use this image or that image? Are we going to run this article? Are we going to accept sponsorship dollars from this advertiser who might be doing weird stuff or doesn't align with our brand? Like, you need to make those calls, because at the end of the day, you are representing all the public facing content that the company's creating. And I think that's a unique responsibility, but also one that people don't really consider when they come into it. Maybe most content marketers come in because, like me, they were good enough at writing and liked marketing, and we're told that there's a perfect role for you. You're a content marketer, you're right, and you a market. But as the company gets bigger, or you move up in job positions, it becomes more about, okay, how are we being perceived, and what kind of messaging are we putting out there?
Since I get to know you through your weekly emails, which I was a fan of, I know that you're writing content about email marketing and growth marketing as well. Would you share us a few tips about growing newsletters or building newsletters?
Yeah, for sure. I just for full transparency, I've never maybe crack the code on like growing an email list. I'm kind of the mindset of like, it's going to grow over time, slowly. We'll get there. I've never figured out how to like get 10,000 people in a week or whatever. I know some people who figure out how to do that. But in those cases, it doesn't always end up being the right people. So, yeah, the way to grow an email list, if that's like a channel that you want to think about, and that's a channel that Mutiny does, is we have people coming to our site, and whenever they fill out a form, they are then added to, or specific forms, they are then added to like our newsletter. And we want that newsletter to be something that's like genuinely useful. So the way a lot of companies do newsletters is they just repurpose all the stuff that they did that week and kind of and post it on there and just say, hey, look at all the stuff we did this week. Like, unless you are making amazing stuff, that's a tricky that's not going to get people to open it. Like that's just not an interesting enough email. And so the way we're differentiating it and the way I've done it with my personal email is to like talk about what's going on in your life. Like it's coming from a person. Like that's the other thing, is even though it's a corporate email account, like it's coming from Mutiny, it's actually coming from me. Like I'm writing it. So I should just like put in some flavor about like who I am, what I care about, how my opinions shape this. Like this, the way I've actually, this is kind of clicking the dots for me, you know, in newspaper or in magazines, usually there's like a page at the beginning, which is like an intro by the editor. Like the editor in chief like writes a little intro being like, hey, the world is this way this month. Here's how we talked about it. Like it's, the email newsletter should almost be like that page from the editor in chief of a magazine, giving context on what's the business thinking about, what are they consuming, how are they doing things, how our opinions on certain like global affairs, because we want to follow people who have similar worldviews to us. That's just sort of how we are. It's okay to be controversial. It's okay to be kind of against the grain. It's okay to be counterintuitive, but you need to be able to like back it up. You can't just say crazy things. Because a newsletter has the benefit of being longer form. You can then explain with more nuance why you're thinking about that. So I think that is just sort of like my stance on what makes for a good newsletter, is one that is like aligns with the like what the reader wants from it. So if a reader just wants to skim it and click on a bunch of cool links, that's fine. But the opposite is like a newsletter that's like in depth, only comes out every month, and you know it's like original, it's new, it's fresh, and you're going to be challenged by reading it. And then there's like a whole spectrum in between, but like I think that's sort of how you have to think about the actual content of your newsletter, is to be known for doing something well that other people aren't doing. So that's sort of like on the side of like the quality bar. And then on how to grow it is just promotion, like talking about it. You can repurpose that content turn it into sort of the daily or the weekly content. And then at the end say like, hey, if you want more of this kind of stuff, join the newsletter. So don't be afraid to drop the link to like the sign up page and say like, join our newsletter. And if that's like the main thing you want, is like, do that all the time. Like always put the newsletter URL in your content, because people aren't going to find it other ways other than you talking about it. So I've been guilty of that, of not promoting it enough. And maybe that's why I've never seen like amazing growth. So as long as you're promoting it, people will come. And then to your point about like people replying, that's amazing. Like if you can ask questions and people reply, like you and I got to know each other pretty well, just from like you asking me a question and then me coming back to you and then learning a little bit more about your work and your life. And then you ask me about my personal life. And it's like, now we get to chat like this, right? That's kind of the amazing part of content marketing, is you don't necessarily realize it at the moment you hit publish, but you're actively influencing people's daily lives. And you have a responsibility to yourself, but also to them, to give them something that is making the world a better place, instead of just adding more noise to the clutter. So that's how I've sort of like balanced we need to create business success and tie it to something measurable like website traffic, which is what I pretty much exclusively measure myself to. Is like, did we generate the website traffic that then leads to leads, that then leads to sales qualified, that then leads to deals, right? That's the end of the day, I'm getting paid to do that. But you also need to have the balance of like, okay, but this is influencing people. We need to be doing stuff that we want the world to be like, instead of actively promoting stuff that we don't like. And so that's sort of just the kind of more higher level responsibility I see when you create content and then want to grow an audience and distribute it to a larger group.
Yeah, I mean, like when I'm thinking about your newsletter and the newsletters that I read, I also read a few other newsletters. Every one of them has a tone of voice and there is a personality behind. Although I don't know, some of them are just newspapers. I don't know the person behind in person. Just, I mean, for in your case, I know you, but in some other newsletters, I don't know the person behind that.
Yeah.
But I still can relate who that person is. I know their character because they add humor on it and they add some storytelling on it. It's easier to do when you are publishing a personal newsletter. It's very easy. It's much easier to do. But especially if you are publishing a newsletter for a company, then it's a little bit harder to do, I guess, to give some personality to the newsletter. And I think then that's where expertise comes into place, I guess.
I mean, the more you prompt me, the more I realize that like content marketing for a company is the exact same as being a magazine editor. Like even if whether you're doing a magazine like that is on an industry even if you're a magazine that's just purely for entertainment, like that has a tone of voice versus like, on airplanes, they have in-flight magazines as well. Like someone's the editor of that magazine, that's full purpose is for you to come back, fly that airline again, and to buy the products that they're advertising. So like theirs is purely profit focused, and yet it still has a tone of voice, and they still create content about, why you should visit Istanbul, why you should go to that cafe, why you should go to that beach. Like they talk about the bigger picture, not just buy.
Yeah. Oh wow, amazing. Yeah, personality. I mean, I'm just going to think about this editor mindset in mind. As you're dealing with a lot with the email, with newsletters at the moment for Mutiny as well. What is a good open rate for a newsletter, for example, in the sector that you are working on? I mean, is there like a good ratio that you expect?
Yeah, usually 40% open rate would be like a very healthy newsletter audience. People, and there's ways of getting that number up if yours is lower. One of the main ones is to actually kick people off your newsletter list. So most newsletter services has email service providers would have a way of filtering your audience by open rate. So if someone joined your email list but has yet never opened one, and they've been on the list for 12 months, they're probably not a very good person to have on the email list. So you can filter it like that and delete them. And some people will freak out being like, well, that was a lead. Like we just disqualified a lead. When it comes to email marketing, you need to have a healthy list, because otherwise Google or Gmail or whoever like is managing your inbox actually will start penalizing you if you have poor open rates or poor delivery rates and stuff. So it's called like email hygiene. You do want to maintain a certain amount of hygiene, and kicking people off is a way of doing that. And yeah, if you can be consistent and get the similar open rates every week, see consistent growth of like people joining your newsletter because they're landing on your website, it's all just sort of a feedback loop. So if everything is growing consistently, you can course correct and say, okay, maybe I need to work on, if we're getting good open rates and we're getting people to the website, but we're not growing at a fast enough rate, then it's like, okay, we need to start working on distribution and promotion. If we're getting not enough traffic to the website and therefore the email newsletter is not growing, you need to say, okay, we need to work on creating more content and distributing it to better channels to get more people to the website. If your email open rates are low and people are unsubscribing, but they're coming to the website, then you need to work on your newsletter quality. And so it's sort of this, like, if those three pieces are working well together, you have a healthy content engine. But you can quickly see which parts are broken, whether it's creation, whether it's distribution, or whether it's amplification and repurposing. Like those are kind of the four pillars of how it all circles back and back.
Perfect. So you say that we need to take it as an ecosystem, not just about, creating good content and delivering it, but also like trying to see if the email list is hygiene, is clean, you're creating good content. So it's all about things are linking. It's like a big, just like everything in marketing, I think it's like a big orchestration of many different pillars.
Yeah.
and seeing the whole picture instead of seeing the only just a small part of it.
Yeah,
Amazing.
absolutely.
So as a head of, I mean, like to wrap up with, as the head of content marketing at Mutiny, I mean, how does this career grow? I mean, like what are the steps that you started as a content marketer and now you're head of content at a company? How is this career evolving? Because it's pretty new for many people, and I know that people out there, there are new content marketers that are junior and they are new to the business. Is there anything that you give them as an advice, and what's the career path that they can take?
I thought a lot about this before taking the role because I was, curious about what it looks like in the future. As you mentioned, content marketing might not, it's been around for a while, but it looks a lot different than it did even 5 years ago. So when I spoke to some mentors of mine who are at like roles that are higher than me, and like, I mean, I have ambition to also kind of like be at a higher level marketing role. I got mixed responses. Some people said content marketing is going to content marketing and brand will have a place at a big company, and there will be a VP of brand and there will be a VP of content. But when the CEO needs to get more revenue, they're not going to invite the brand and the content person to the meeting. They're going to invite the growth and performance marketer to the meeting, because those people have very quick, they're able to actually generate, they have the tools to generate results very quickly. So performance marketing being like ads, and the growth marketing being the person who kind of understands the, is focused purely on just getting more people. So I was like, okay, that's interesting. But then I went and spoke to another mentor who said he started off as a content marketer and was like then head of content, and then is now director of marketing. Like he is the one doing the whole thing. And he's the one who gets invited to the meeting when the CEO asks how to grow revenue. So I think it'll be different at every single company. And the more I'm learning about this higher level marketing leadership, is there will be sort of all these different categories of marketing at most big companies. There will be the VP of ad, the VP of performance or ads, the VP of growth, who will kind of merge those two positions, like VP of content, VP of brand. There'll be like 5 or 6 marketing, high level marketing roles if that company has kind of that level of hierarchy. And then there's, at other companies, there's going to be like a mix of all 5 of those types of content, right? So I don't really have a great answer because I've yet to be there, and I've only gotten contradictory answers from the people who I trust. But the reason why I took the role and am excited about it and excited about the growth opportunities that come in this industry and in this kind of line of work is people just, you don't realize it, but like you spend every single day on social media feeds, reading newsletters, reading emails, reading websites. Like I don't know about you, but like I just sit at my computer for 8 to 10 hours a day doing work, and every single thing I touch is content. And then when I'm done at work, I then go for a walk and I listen to a podcast. That's content. Then when I'm done with the podcast and I'm done, we have dinner, we talk about the content we consumed during that day. Oh, I read this thing. I saw this thing. Then when we're done with that, we go sit on the couch and watch TV and watch more content. Like and then when we're going to bed, we read a book. That's more content. Like it's so weird to think about it, but like content is just like everything and all things right now. Maybe that's a factor of the pandemic and everyone just needing something to fill their days. Maybe content will die down a little bit once people start going and seeing each other in real life and actually wanting to talk instead of share memes back and forth. Who knows? But if content sort of grows into that editor-in-chief idea that I was talking about, I think there's always going to be a role for them, whether it is at a software company or it could be at a not-for-profit. They'll still need someone to oversee how they present themselves to the world. And so I see it as kind of a unique, a unique part of marketing where it can go really hard on the marketing side and you can be like, okay, we're driving business results. But if your company is a little bit more brand focused, like you could content can kind of curl away and start talking about branding and kind of getting more people in the ecosystem involved in that world. So I don't know, I'm excited about it. I really enjoy it. And I also think content marketers are maybe the most easy to get along with people. Every single content marketer I've like engaged with on LinkedIn or message or get to meet like you, it's just like maybe this like the personality that comes with it is like we're social enough that we like to talk about the things we're doing, but we're also curious that we actually want to talk about, learn from each other. So I think that's sort of also a really important thing to check in as you pursue your career is like, okay, who are the people you're going to be working around as well, not just the day-to-day, but how it ends up being part of your life.
Perfect summary. I mean, as a long years marketer, I can tell you that as a content marketer yourself, you know the brand, you know the product, because you need to write content and you need to produce content for the brand. And in order to produce content, you also need to know the consumer and the customer and their pain points. That's why it makes this role quite crucial, but it also opens up different paths in the marketing world, because marketing is mainly about knowing the brand, telling a story about the brand, knowing the customer and their pain points. And then, once you know them, then you're much a better marketer in the path. So, I hope I'm wishing you good luck on your journey ahead. So for people that wants to follow you, I know that I'm following you at almost every channel, but what are the best places that people can follow you?
Yeah, this year I'm focusing exclusively on LinkedIn. I tried doing Twitter and LinkedIn last year and found myself doing neither. So LinkedIn would be Stuart, Stewart, last name Hillhouse, Hillhouse. Yeah, and that'd be the best place to connect with me. And please like connect with me and send a little message saying you listened to this episode and that's how you heard. I'd love to see other friendly faces. And that's the place. And then I also create content on other channels, but if you follow me on LinkedIn, you'd kind of be able to find all that other stuff.
I think the hard thing about this cluttered World Wide Web is to find the experts on their area. And for me, like knowing you as the expert for content marketing, I would highly suggest people to follow your LinkedIn account, because you keep on producing really good content. And it's not easy to find those people that are experts in this marketplace. Thanks so much for being a part of the show, Stuart.
Thank you so much, Atia.